Hello Dabblers of the Internet, JP here with another Kings of War Battle Report covering the Australian Clash of Kings 2022 tournament in Canberra, and this is round 5. It's taken a sweet long time to get this one done, mainly because we adopted 2 dogs, but hopefully you won't hear them in the background, you'll just hear me talking about this game, so watch on. For those of you that are not familiar with this channel, and this might be your first Kings of War video from my channel, this channel actually is comprised of 2 different streams of content. You've got my stuff that's about Kings of War and wargaming, and you've got my wife's stuff that's about the stitching that she does. And so as long as you don't mind those 2 things appearing in your feed, then please give us a subscribe. Round 5, the middle round for day 2. I've had 2 wins on my first day, 2 losses in the next 2 games, and I've got 2 games to go. My goal was to get 3 and 3. 3 wins, 3 losses. That's okay. You know, this is my first big boy tournament, and so I don't mind not being the champion. I just want to win as much as I lost. And so I've got 2 games with which I can achieve this. I only need to win one of them. And so I'm getting into this mindset that I just need to push through and get these wins. Not so hard, right? Well, my next opponent, after having been bludgeoned by the Ratkin, and just before lunch, was Dave and his Northern Alliance. So, if you haven't seen this list a million times already, then you probably want to go to my first video in this series, so the first episode of the Clash of Kings series. I'll probably put all the links in the bottom, and that's where I really talk about the list in depth. The reason why I took the things and what I did with them, but I'll go briefly here, at least give a little context. So we have the Gargoyles, because you have to have Gargoyles. We've got the Tortured Souls, they're a pretty good hammer unit. Then we have the Abyssal Horsemen, a regiment of those that are a very good hammer unit. Then we have the Cronius, who helps the whole army kind of grind, and also, you know, Crushing 3, fantastic. The Abyssal Fiend, not as punchy, but he is a good source of inspiring. Then the Abyssal Champion. Now this guy's wicked fun, because he's got that Known Glass Shield, and he's got the wings upgrade, so he can fly. You know, you just put him anywhere you want to stop, be it Mind Screech, flappy thing that flies around that you just don't want doing anything. The Abyssal Champion more than likely will be able to at least stop it doing something for a turn or 2. Then I have my Abyssal Warlock with Banechant 2s to buff all the relative units in my army list. And finally, in terms of all the single stuff, the Manifestation of Bael, who is just a mini dragon who can just fly around, do his lightning bolts, do his combats. He's pretty versatile. Now, I guess the bulk in terms of numbers of the army is the Khazar's Torment formation that is available to the Forces of the Abyss in the latest Clash of Kings book. Now that is the regiment that you have to take of Lower Abyssals and a horde of Lower Abyssals, so these you have to take, as these are led by a Despoiler Champion. Now the upgrades, again briefly, the upgrades that you get is that the Despoiler Champion gains Inspiring, so that's pretty good, and he also gets a Life Leech Aura, and then the Lower Abyssals benefit from that Life Leech Aura because it's only affecting infantry. And then finally, the Lower Abyssals do explode upon their death, which is a neat little bonus there. Obviously, you do have to pay some points on top for each of these units to have this happen. But yeah, it was me trying this out because, you know, it is called the Clash of Kings tournament after all, so why not put some cool Clash of Kings stuff in there? Because I take that out, the only thing that really benefited from Clash of Kings was the Abyssal Champion with the shield and the Cronius. Everything else is kind of pretty samey. So Dave's Northern Alliance list is mostly made up of pairs of lots of really good units in the Northern Alliance list, which is fantastic armors, by the way. There's lots of fantastic stuff, individual units, as well as having probably one of the best upgrades, the special upgrade that you can have for your army, which is the Snow Fox, because it's just +1 attack. Like, who doesn't want that? Sacrificial Imp, reroll your regens. It's kind of okay. I'm not sure if I'll ever get to use it. Maybe my unit might die straight away, but you know what you'll always use? An extra attack. Anyway, going into the list, we have 2 Dwarf Clansmen. So 2 regiments of them. You can just plop them on a objective anywhere you need, and they are not easy to remove because, you know, they've got quite high nerve, defense 5. It's just going to sit there for at least 2 turns, and so someone will have to sacrifice something pretty nasty to try and take them out. So annoying, that's for sure. What else is annoying? Icekin Hunters. You look at them and you think Icekin Hunters, but actually they're the Gladestalkers in disguise. They're the one Gladestalker unit that got the upgrade that's not called Gladestalkers, because they have that now, the extra attacks, they have the better shooting, and they have the better combat potential. So really, They are quite dangerous and you shouldn't underestimate them. Next we have the Snow Foxes, which is the obligatory chaff for the Northern Alliance. So the Snow Foxes regiments can really just get anywhere because they're quite a small, little, nimble unit, and the fact that they are height 1 means that everyone else can see over them in terms of being able to then charge. So they can skedaddle out of the way of anything or get anywhere quite easily, so they're quite annoying. But the real meat and potatoes of this list are the 2 hordes of snow trolls, because these guys are solid. So you got the goblin trolls, which are pretty fine. They're 14, 17. They have that large differential between wavering and rout. That's just part of their vulnerability. The snow trolls do one better. They get vicious, so also pretty good. But then they go to 15, 18 because they live in the snow. So being in the snow makes you more vicious and also makes you more resilient. So who'd have thought? So maybe I should just take my goblins to the snow when I get them. It sounds like they're taking their kids to the snow. Anyway, but the other part of the meat and potatoes, the real meaty part, is the 2 lords on Frostfang. These are really nasty too. So they have Blade of Slashing, Mace of Crushing, and the Snow Foxes to give them that extra attack. So they are going to come in at 9 attacks, and you can never really stop them. So regardless of what you try and do, they will come in and hurt. And so I did try and stop them, as you'll see. But how effective that is, you'll also see. And then finally, to round out the list, we have just a little bit of extra ranged ability with the Ice Queen sporting a Blizzard, which was a spell I'd never encountered up until now. And then Hrim, the legendary Ice Giant, because if you are going to bring an Ice Giant, you might as well save up those extra points and go for Hrim, because he is just all out better. He will flatten everything and he will be very hard to shift. So this is the very solid Northern Alliance list that Dave has brought to the table, and I'm just bringing my little Forces of the Abyss. So what kind of scenario could we be in, and would it be any advantage to me in this round 5? It's Fool's Gold, which has come up actually quite a bit in my battle report. And this involves both of us placing 5 objective markers in our opponent's half. What makes these objective markers unique is that they're actually worth different amounts of victory points. So we've got 2 that are worth 0 victory points, so useless, 2 of them that are worth 1 victory point, and 1 that is worth 2 victory points. So there's a lot up for grabs. And by putting them in your opponent's deployment zone, you're thinking about where you want to be, or where you hope that your opponent will not be by the end of the game, because it's all scored at the end of the game. And the extra bit is that obviously your opponent will not know because you place them face down. So this does rely on having some objective markers that have a side that is blank while the other side contains the value. So this is a kind of fun one where you just trying to bluff where you might be placing all the interesting stuff. So what I remember of my game was that here, this one on the right, just behind that difficult terrain, was my 2, and then here's a 1 and a 1 either side of it. So I was really just trying, I identified this as the place that I wanted to get to with my army. And that was really just because there's a blocking terrain here, and so, I mean, it's quite equal. But then we've got a hill and forest over there, whereas this is a bit more open. The hill's right in the middle, there's some difficult terrain there, but it's towards the end. So I was thinking this might be my way to approach. I can march up through this part to approach the 2 and the 1, and then hopefully do something about this over here and get there. So that was my kind of game plan when I was putting those tokens down, because you do have to think about where you put them. Whether this is probably the best places to put them, if I look back on this now, looking at ending up in a difficult terrain is perhaps not the best. I would rather be defending it. So perhaps if I was starting on this side, my troops would instead be defending this one, but then I would also be facing a whole bunch of units coming down with thunderous charge off that hill. So either way, I couldn't quite see what was the best place to put them, but this avenue at least looks like the most feasible for my army to navigate, because my army is not all that fast. So speaking of armies, we now have them deployed. So I think it's pretty clear, but just in case, I'll go through each unit on my side and then on his. So on my side, what I've done is deploy pretty much everything together. So you see down here, there's the Abyssal Horsemen with their red cloaks. Then I have the Abyssal Fiend, offering some inspiring there. Then I have my first and my low Abyssal, that's the regiment there with the two-handed weapons, so they're defense 3 but crushing 1. And then, as I like to put between them, the Cronius and the Spoiler Champion, and then the Horde of Lower Abyssals on the other side. And then finally we've got the Abyssal Warlock on this side, just to, do some little shooty shoot, but then also be ready to buff these guys. Then down here we have the Manifestation of Baal, so he's just in the back lines. He doesn't really need to be, but he's just there because he can fly, he can go any direction he likes. While I also have the Gargoyles that I'm trying not to throw away all too quickly, because that is what I am liable to do. And then right here on the flank, so that's the one interesting thing, is that I have the Tortured Souls. So yes, I mentioned that I had that one value objective token over here hidden, and so I needed something that could go over there and get them, and being all the way over there, it's only going to be something that can fly, really. So I set the Tortured Souls there, although they're not the fastest of flying units. Like really, that's something better for Gargoyles to go after, but yeah, as we were placing down the different things, he placed one of those, as I mentioned, the Dwarf Clansmen that can hold anything pretty well, and so I realized that the Gargoyles weren't going to cut it, because these guys have pretty high unit strength 3, so you can't just send Gargoyles and just hover near them, because they're going to own it anyway. So I need to send something of equal unit strength and equal punching power to actually take them out, and so that's how the Tortured Souls ended up on this side. And then somewhere in here, I neglected to mention, oh, there he is. There is my Abyssal Champion. Yeah, Abyssal Champion, that's what it's called. And so he will be ready to hit whatever is coming up a bit fast. So yeah, that's the army as I've deployed. And you can see I'm trying to go between these sidelines. I'm in the middle, I'm castling up. Because if anything, it's probably my lesson from being overwhelmed by Ratkin in all directions, that I just didn't want to give them that chance. But there was little chance of that, because if you look at his army, it hasn't actually got that many components, especially when you take away the 2 Dwarf Clansmen dedicated to their respective objective markers, because there's one objective back here, of which the Dwarf Clansmen currently own, and there's another one over here, which is also occupied by Dwarf Clansmen. So, it's actually not that many units left, because then we have the 2 Snow Trolls that are sitting either side of Hrim, right in the middle. Then we have Snow Foxes, and then I think in front of Hrim there's another regiment of Snow Foxes. So plenty of Snow Foxes abound. Then over behind this one on the right, we have the Lord on Frostfang, who is deployed, I guess, ready to take on this side and add his punching power. Hitting power. I always say punching power, but contribute to the fights on this side. And then we have on the other side the other Lord on Frostfang right here behind that tree. Then we have the 2 regiments of Icekin Hunters taking advantage of these forests, so they'll scout up, because they do have the scout, so get into forest or the hill and have a lot of shooting advantage. And then this little lone individual there, that is the Ice Queen with Blizzard. So yeah, it's not like I was going to be overwhelmed, but I just needed to castle up, because if anything, it was just to cover the wounds that I'd received in the previous game from Hume. So as expected, the scouting occurred, and straight into the forest went one, and straight onto the hill went the other. The only thing about being in the forest means it probably will be unlikely to move, because each move that they do, despite the fact that they have Pathfinder, they will still suffer a -1, because they are moving in difficult terrain to their shooting. So I don't expect them to do all that much movement once they're there. But I received turn 1, and I decided to take it. So this involved moving lots of things up. So first shot we're showing here are the Tortured Souls that are taking advantage of the jump and going forwards, ready to take out these Dwarf Clansmen who are sitting there all on their lonesome. It might be quite the grind, because they're, on average, since they're hitting on 4s, I probably only do about 4 to 5 damage on the charge, and then after that I'm a little bit weaker, because I lose my Thunderous Charge, but eventually I will grind them down thanks to the Life Leech and the high nerve of the Tortured Souls. So I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing here. I think this is a smart move, a little bit smart. And then I got the rest of the army moving up as well, just in one solid line. And then on this side I am also doing the same. Everything just moving up. I'm putting these guys on the hill, these guys being the Defense 3 Lower Abyssals, because I just want to set the boundary. His army doesn't move all that fast, so I just want to get up and then I'm happy to just sit here if I have to, while also having other things ranging out. So we've got the Manifestation of Baal, my intention with him was to then do some lightning bolts onto some of those Glade Stalker units, the Icekin Hunters, and I'm just keeping my gargoyles nice and calm, not throwing them away at the drop of a hat. But what's going on over here? Well, I've sent in my Abyssal Champion, perhaps prematurely, but you know, I saw these guys coming up. I know I've got a Defense 3 unit. These Defense 3 guys, they're very fragile. They're only 14, 16, so they will disappear very quickly. No, I think no, they're 13, 15. So yeah, they can't take much damage before suddenly they're going to run on a 7. So I decided that I needed to shut this down quickly. And who could do it? The Abyssal Champion. Because 5 attacks, they are quite reliable so far. Whether this was the best idea, because these guys can hit hard back. But he is defense 6, so he's definitely not going anywhere because they have no crushing. And then Baal, off screen, you can't see him here, but he did a lightning bolt, and he shot it, and he did 1 damage. You can see the dice there, so fantastic. I'm really good at not rolling well with my lightning bolts, or his 7 attacks. Yeah, bring Baal because he is fantastic, and when he gets in flanks, he's really toasty, but it just seems whenever I'm just doing the plain old 7, it usually just whiffs a whole bunch. But then over here, you can't see the number, but he did manage to do some damage, so they won't be shooting next turn, that's for sure. So good on you, Abyssal Champion. But can he take the hit back? We will find out. Now, it's turn 1 for the Northern Alliance. So, what do we have here? Well, the dwarves haven't moved. They didn't need to, because Daddy Frostfang is on the way to help out. So, suddenly, and I mean, I should have foreseen this. I don't know why I moved up so aggressively, but this has put a spanner into my plans, spanner into the works, because now charging these guys, so yes, next turn, I charge them, I will not break them. This is the mental gymnastics I'm doing over this while I'm taking pictures, as I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to probably do about, 4 damage. They've got a high nerve, so I need to roll pretty hot twice to get rid of them, and that's very unlikely. And what will happen? What will be my reward for doing that? It will be a flank charge from a Frostfang, which is the worst way to receive a Frostfang. I mean, rear is definitely the worst, but you've got to be really unlucky for that. But definitely a flank charge, as would happen here, would be very unfortunate and would quickly see my Tortured Souls dissolve back into the weird stuff of which they came, the ectoplasm. So, yeah, that's not very encouraging, but it was definitely smart on Dave's side of just put a Frostfang. I mean, this guy's not doing, like, he could come up on that side, but he can go around here, and he can definitely come back as well, because the Frostfangs are so flexible. They can do whatever they want. And these dwarves, they definitely can't. And so by getting them some inspiring, and then also some, that threat, that promise of getting a Frostfang in the flank, has completely shut down my want to get this single objective. So good on you, Dave.
Then everything else just moved up. So we've got the entire army just moving up in a solid wave. Including, we've got this little Ice Queen that's ready to do some nasty damage on my Defense 3. Not very nice. What else we have is also that the other Lord on Frostfang is doing some other tricky maneuvers and threatening my other units. So just like the other one was stopping the Tortured Souls, this one's coming up and saying, hey, Abyssal Champion, knock it off. Leave those Icekin Hunters alone. Which is fair enough. I mean, I cop that. But, I'll keep on chopping into them while I can. Then you can see that there's 2 charges that have been let off here. We have the Snow Foxes that have hit the Abyssal Fiend and the Cronius respectively. So they've come in to just slow them down, because he identified those 2 as definitely units that could have range on his army. A speed 7 and a speed 6, and he doesn't want to get hit by them all too early, especially if there was a double charge to go off. So especially with this one, very well done. It now blocks off my Abyssal Horseman and my Abyssal Fiend, which is my bad. I definitely shouldn't have put them that close. Like, look at that gap. That is not a good size gap. You don't want a unit size gap between your units, but you don't also want them to be able to be blocked. So this chaff is doing fantastic. It's blocking 2 different units, so very annoying. But then we can also see the Icekin Hunters. They decided they really needed to shoot, so they have moved, so they will be suffering that -1 and probably do not all that much damage. And then we have the Dwarf Clansmen there, as expected, just sitting at the back on that objective, which they don't know, there's nothing in it. If the voice quality sounds suddenly better, it's because I realized my condenser wasn't actually plugged in, so I apologize for the first half of this video. So for some reason I took another picture of this unfortunate situation, but I think it was just to emphasize the fact that this situation is lost and I will no longer go over there. So when it came to the shooting phase, though, we have a combination of not only the Blizzard, but I forgot that Hrim actually has a shooting attack as well. So my perfectly positioned, right on the hill, Defense 3 regiment was primed for frosty attack. So it received both an Icy Breath and a Blizzard for a total of 11 damage. So that means you only need a 4 twice, which is not a tall order, and they were gone. So great. You know, the cool thing about that unit is the fact that, you know, when they die, they should explode, but now they're dead. The irony is when they explode, they make things frozen, so they die to freezing stuff is just, I guess, some form of icing on the cake. And then somehow we also have a little bit extra damage. Oh yes, that would have been from those, the one Icekin hunters that are able to shoot. They did shoot at my gargoyles, but little was achieved there. And so over here they hit back and do 0 damage. Which is good for me. And then over here, the Snow Foxes, however, managed to do 2 damage to my Abyssal Fiend, which is just rude. So I won't be able to fireball, that's for sure. And no damage on the Cronius, which is at least some consolation. They didn't take any damage at all. So it's now my turn to try and get past those Snow Foxes. Turn 2. So, seeing that terrible power of that Ice Queen using that Blizzard, I decided that I really needed to shut it down, and I didn't have much on hand to shut down a single character, and so I looked at my gargoyle and said, well, hopefully you guys are up for the challenge, and off I sent them on a mission to kill a character. Probably not the best use of gargoyles, again, still not impressed with my performance, but let's just say I overreacted to Blizzard. I needn't overreact to Blizzard, because now that the Defense 3 unit is dead, the only Defense 3 unit that remains is the one that I'm currently sending to kill the Wizard. So that was a bit silly, but here they go, and it's not too bad. I mean, they are blocking a few of the units, and so I should take advantage of the fact that I have this unit here by bringing up everything else ready for a charge next turn. Seeing that Lord and Frostfang now approaching, so my Abyssal Champion has changed targets, swapped from the Icekin Hunters and gone to slap this Lord and Frostfang, because I'm still full health. Oh yeah, and the reason the Ice Queen is back here is because she, but it's a he model, just kept tumbling down the hill. So the actual position is about here of that individual, but it's over here for their own safety. Over here, I decided, hey, I'm in range, because I measured it. These guys were over here, and this nimble bastard was just here, but he wasn't the one that got hit, so he could nimble his way out of the situation, because he's got the 2 pivots, so he could be like, whoop, whoop. No, actually, no, I think what I did, I went this way, this way, this way. You'll see, because what I did is I withdrew my Cronius, because I thought, well, I can get it out. So I went to overall, here's the disaster of what I thought was a good idea, because I was like, if I get the jump on him, this will be great. And so what was the jump? Well, the jump was, why don't I send in my Horde, which sounds cool, a Horde, and the Despoiler Champion into Snow Trolls. What could go wrong, right? You know, they're in range, I might as well. Well, let me tell you, this is not a good idea. So this is speaking to the past me. This is not a good idea, because these guys, well, they're not great in combat, and now they're hindered because they're going through some crappy terrain. So, wonderful. Hindered, so hitting on 5s, wounding on 5s as well. Maybe I'll get a Bane Chant off. That's what this little Warlock's here for. Why? Why when there's a defense 5 dude? So yeah, maybe I'll be hitting on 5s, wounding on 4s. So that means I'm going from 25 attacks to 10 attacks that hit, so hitting on 5s, hitting on 5s, and then half of those will wound, so 5 wounds. Alright, it's alright. And then little Despoiler Champion here will, you know, chuck on 2 or 3, because he's got 5 attacks, not all that many. So 8. I still need a really high number to get rid of them, because they are 18. I need to roll 10 twice. Very unlikely. And that's doing average. You know, I'm very always at risk of doing below average. It's average or below average, and sometimes in between. But yeah, it wasn't a smart idea, that's for sure. It's definitely not like the kingpin move. And in order to do this, so what I had to do, and hopefully I'll show it to you. So let's see. Yes. So you can show it right here, almost infinity. I thought this was smart at the time, but I was like, wow, these guys, the Horde can't charge by itself. How can I get 2 units? Because everyone says, you know, you got to multi-charge. I don't think when people say you got to multi-charge, they're saying multi-charge with your crappy Horde with a little champion dude. That's not what they mean. I think they mean multi-charge with like Abyssal Horsemen and Tortured Souls. You know, that's usually the thing that people have in mind. They're not saying just throw some pillows at them. So anyway, what I did do was disengaged and moved him back. You know, he's moved 6, so he moved back 3, giving a nice clear path for my nimble champion to head out and get into the fray. Wonderful. Why did I do that? I'm not sure, but this is the situation I've got in now, and since I will not kill them on the charge, I have to be ready for the consequences, of which I wasn't, because I wasn't thinking. And now, at least, I'm finding from doing these battle reports that I now try and think about in the game that I'm doing, what stupid shit will I say about myself? Like, what stuff will I pick up on? And I try and think of it while I'm doing the game, rather than, you know, in this case, 2 months after the game, when it's far too late. But anyway, this is what has happened, the calamity on this side. On the other side, well, I didn't really do that much, because like I said, these snow foxes are right in the way. Really annoying, and so I just charged them with my Abyssal Horseman because I needed to get rid of them, and disengaged my Abyssal Fiend for no real reason beyond I just didn't want him to get charged by Hrim. Not that I had to worry, because really what I've got here is a tasty flank for him to go into, rather than the front of an Abyssal Fiend, which, you know, he probably could handle as well, but not as reliably. So yeah, that's what's going on that side. And then over here, yes, I've decided to abandon that, doing the maths, so at least I was doing a little bit of forward thinking, because, you know, the rate I was doing charges over here, I very well could have just sent them into the dwarves as well, and wondered why it just didn't work and I got flank charged by a Frostfang. But at least I avoided that humiliation, and I decided, let's bring this, you know, 200-point unit back to where it might do a bit more damage. And so over here, we just see that we've got these combats going on. I can't really see how much damage is done to him. And we also have the manifestation of Baal, who just flapped up and ready to do some lightning bolt. Yeah, I think that was merely just a picture to show that these combats were occurring. I was taking a lot of extra pictures. So this is a 4 damage. Oh, 4 damage on them. Well, there you go. The Abyssal Champion didn't do bad at all. Good on ya. But over here, the Abyssal Champion, in this combat, so the 4 damage was the last combat, so epic, but he still managed to do 1 damage, so disordered is this lad. So he's not going to be doing any nimble shenanigans this time, because that's really the thing you have to do. Yeah, this guy with nimble, he gets anywhere, because he's got that 7-inch movement, so he can charge with his pivots, he can easily disengage and get anywhere he wants, especially with such, you know, only an individual going into his front. On this side, I managed to do enough damage to the wizard, the Ice Queen, to cause a wavering, as denoted by this token that is placed in the stead of where he should be. So gargoyles did actually do a good job. So now they're just acting as normal chaff. And there's not really anything that can take them, like obviously these guys can charge them, but there's nothing that can just remove them and allow the army to continue on. So yeah, they will sit there and get in the way a bit. So not the worst application of gargoyles, definitely had worse applications in previous games. And here's a mid-action shot, literally in the action, showing us absolutely no detail about how much damage was done, but we can see there's a bit of a smidgen of the blue counter here. Sorry for all the blurriness. I was apparently moving faster than the sports mode of the camera could allow. But I did do some damage, which is to be expected, but the lack of a wavering token or anything, I mean, I think these guys had the Dwarven Ale or a Chalice of Wrath or something, means that I am well and truly stuck here, and I have no one to blame but myself. So it's time to feel the pain in return. And let's turn to the return of Hrim. Well, there he is, there's Hrim. Hi, Hrim. So what we have over here is that the chaff is actually doing its work. The Lord and Frostfang is being prevented from getting into the fray at the same time as the Snow Trolls, so both of them are being held up. Good. But unfortunately I did not manage to stop the very damaged, 8 damage on them, I must have hit them with a lightning bolt, Icekin Hunters. And what they've gone and done is charged into my Abyssal Horsemen, who did manage to polish off those Snow Foxes, but now get to receive a thunderous charge because they're coming off the hill, Icekin Hunters, which is not great, but you know, they'll still survive. The other Snow Foxes that were in front of the Cronius have now moved over here to stop my Abyssal Fiend from getting in, and I've got a little bit of a traffic jam in the way I've positioned things. I did think I turned these guys slightly, not to give a flank to something, but I don't think I was really measuring my flanks very well, because I didn't need to turn them at all. I should have just kept them front on. So now this guy, my Abyssal Fiend, will not be able to charge, unfortunately. And then we have here what other attacks do we have going on? Well, there we can see off screen. So let's take a look. We have Hrim going into the flank as expected. I've given it to him, and he might as well just take it. It's only to spoil the champion, so it's not horrendous for me, but it is something that I'm almost certainly going to lose, because Hrim, well, in the front, Rim is nasty, but in the flank, oh my gosh. And guess what? My Despoiler champion is a large cavalry, and Shrim has Slayer D6, so I'm just giving him all the bonuses I possibly can. The only thing I could possibly do is just turn my butt towards him and just say go for it. But then we also have the Snow Trolls are going also into the Despoiler champion, which I think was probably not required. Like, they probably could have countercharged the Lower Abyssals, but they just really wanted to take out this Despoiler champion, who really doesn't have that much to offer, but that's the case of it. So now that the Tortured Souls have given up on the Dwarves, the Lord of Frostfang has also given up on helping the Dwarves and is coming back to add his contribution to the fight, which is not good for me, because it's hard enough dealing with one Lord on Frostfang, let alone the two. On this side, we've got the Dwarf Clansmen trying to chase my Tortured Souls, which doesn't really make much sense, because I will definitely not be there next turn. I'll zip off down here. And so, yeah, they've moved off the objective, which I guess is good for me, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting approach. I guess just wanted to see if he could take him out. And on this side, we have some shooting going on from the Icekin Hunters, and managed to do 1 damage, which is not bad considering the Manifestation of Baal is not only defense 5, but also stealthy. And here, the indication of these fingers, which looks like he's trying to show something walking, eyes. Yes, we're getting into the combat whereupon the gargoyles will probably lose their life. And they do. The number is glowing, but I think it's a 6, and 6 damage is definitely more than enough to take out gargoyles, which is actually a poor showing for the Snow Trolls, but, you know, I guess they're just getting warmed up on some gargoyles. Oh, and I think we got a bit aggressive over here, because look, everything just fell over. On this side, we have now, he's just eagerly wanting to roll this dice, and fair enough, it is very satisfying rolling that amount of dice that have such high amount of crushing. And so all the damage is piling into my poor Despoiler champion. And it was a monumental amount of damage. What we're seeing here is the top of the spin down counter for Magic the Gathering that says a 20, so it's 22 damage in total, but unfortunately he rolled double ones. So somehow my Despoiler champion will continue to fight on, and he has regeneration, so he is liable to come out reasonably better than 22 damage, that's for sure. And I will definitely enjoy rolling 22 dice to see how much I regenerate. On this side, well, colour me surprised, we have these Icekin Hunters go in and they do 5 damage, which is not good because Abyssal Horsemen don't have the highest nerve of all the cavalry, and any damage they take early in the game is definitely something to be avoided. So I'm taking damage pretty much in all angles, and so I need to capitalise on the fact that the double ones has saved my skin and do something about it. So what do I do in turn 3? Well, first I need to clear up this whole situation of the Icekin Hunters. So I've double charged them with the Abyssal Fiend and my Abyssal Horseman. So they should be not long for this world. Then I've sent off the Manifestation of Baal, probably more as revenge because I just couldn't believe I was getting shot at by Icekin Hunters and actually getting hit, but it was definitely not the smartest idea. Perhaps I should have charged Lord and Frostfang, perhaps I should have joined in this fight here, or just held back. Or I could have moved around and then shot at the Snow Foxes, but instead I decided to go for this unit and take them out. Over on here we can see actually the Despoiler Champion's given up on the Lord and Frostfang and gone over and decided to go clobber the Wizard, who is now no longer wavered. It's another example of me fixating on something that did a lot of damage to me and scarred me in my early childhood of this game, in terms of childhood being about 30 minutes ago. And wanting to then get my revenge, but really what he should have been doing is still tanking this Lord and Frostfang, because now it's free, and a free Lord and Frostfang is a terrifying thing, and I should have paid more respect to it than this stupid Ice Queen. Yeah. On this side, well, the Cronius wasted no time when it came to Hrim's unfortunate double one-ing, and has now flank charged him. So the Cronius, not as powerful as Hrim, but in the flank I think he can do at least quite a bit of damage. And then I've also countercharged Hrim with the Despoiler Champion, so I don't receive at least another flank attack. I don't think the Despoiler Champion is particularly going to hold up even to a front sack from Hrim one more time, because even though he has gone down to, I think I've regenerated a monumental amount of wounds, because I think that says maybe 12, so I must have regenerated at least 9 or 10. So that's pretty good. So at least I'm not bracketed anymore. But he's really not going to be doing all that much damage. He just doesn't want to take too much more. And then counter-charging here, well, actually charging again, which is really annoying because they weren't charging me. The lower abyssals have gone into the snow trolls, which just kind of sucks, because now I have to go through that terrain again. But then perhaps what I should have noted is the fact that maybe it might have become a flank charge, depending on where exactly my leader point is there, and I did not measure it, so that's on me. Maybe it could have been a flank now that these guys had shuffled over to take on my Despoiler champion. But we'll never know. Now, as also predicted, I brought the Tortured Souls up, way out of range of these Dwarf Clansmen, so they're not going to do anything. But what I did have to be cognizant of was the angles that the Lord and Frostfang here was presenting, so I definitely didn't want to give him a flank charge. So, you know, sometimes I'm being smart. I didn't just give everything away. But that's usually not the case. I usually give things away. And so, well, very successfully, I managed to, in combat, take out that wizard, the Ice Queen. I keep saying wizard because it looks like a wizard model. It's an Ice Queen, my lady, you know, it's Elsa. So I killed Elsa and then marched on right forward in front of these guys. So at least I will block them a little bit, because why not? Whereas over here, well, let's have the next combat. We have, yep, freedom for my Abyssal Horseman and the Abyssal Fiend. I did regenerate a little bit, which is good in that turn, so I'm not so worse off, and ready to take on something next, because these are my sharpness horses and I need them to kill all this other nasty stuff. Over here, well, it wasn't that great. So what I'm showing is I did 7 damage in total with the Cronius on. I've taken this from later slides where I couldn't see it here, but yeah, in the flank, double attacks. But yeah, when I roll that d6 plus 6 hits, I managed to roll something pretty low, and then I don't hit with a bunch of them. I mean, a lot of people at the events that I've been going to can attest. They will come over to the table and they'll see my Cronius is usually alive in the late game, and they just watch him go into a combat, and then they watch me roll dismally, and then they just walk away. It's like, there's nothing to see here. This guy's just got bad dice. I don't want to see that. Fair enough. So in this case, there's another case. I put in so much effort painting this model, and all he does is give me really low numbers. But in any case, it's definitely not enough to kill him, because he's well beyond the capacity to rout with a 7 damage. So I'll have to try again next time, if there is a next time. And then over here, well, the Manifestation of Baal did go into these Iceskin Hunters, but I don't think managed to rout them, which is unfortunate. And so what we're actually seeing here is this was a shot that I was quickly taking when I remembered I didn't take any more shots before the next turn. And so, spoiler alert, you can see where that Lord and Frostfang went. It went into my Abyssal Horseman. I know! So turn 3, Northern Alliance, you already saw a bit of it, so let's see some more. So these guys are moving back. So what I've done with that arrow is just to show they've done a complete about face. And they're just going to start moving backwards, because they realize that this is a very silly idea, leaving that objective. It could be something. He doesn't know still, because it's still just turn 3, but they need to get back there. Because it's actually, I didn't mention when you flip them over, you flip them over at the start of turn 4. So off they're going right back. Back to the mines, you dwarves. And then here in the real cluster that is just nasty, and of my own making, I've got a flank from a Frostfang, which I've mentioned is something you don't want, and should be avoided at all costs for one's own health and the health of one's models. And a front charge from the Snow Trolls, which is probably needed just to add on that little bit of extra damage, because these guys do need a bit of power to take them off. You know, they're 2022, so they do take a reasonable amount. They've got regen, so you want to take them out quickly, otherwise they will heal it up. And so this is a good way to do it. And then over here, Frim is just sick and tired of my Despoiler champion and decided that that's what he needs to take out. Not the Cronius. Cronius, get stuffed. If I kill this, and he thinks he can, which is fair enough, double ones twice in a row would be very unfortunate, then he can just turn to face the Cronius. Over there, we got the charge of the trolls into my Abyssal champion, so I'm holding it back. It's pretty good, and these snow trolls are just getting in the way, so I can't just charge off in the end. So that's also quite smart and annoying. And then over here, and it's also protecting this Lord and Frostfang from getting a flank charge from the Abyssal Fiend. Over here, that's the first combat we decided to start with. I'm not quite sure why, but I guess it's the simplest one to roll. I needed another damage onto my Manifestation of Baal. So far these guys are doing more damage to him than he's done to them, which is not the way it should be for a giant demon. Over here, the Abyssal Champion, having already taken 5 wounds from the Lord of Frostfang and no longer having a Gnome Glass shield in his possession, did not last against the Snow Trolls, which is no real surprise, so that's the end of him. Similarly, the Despoiler Champion did not have it in him to do another double ones and made a Vanishing Act right about now. So now I am down my Despoiler Champion, which really just means I lose to the Life Leech Aura. I still have Inspiring here, and I'm not really worried about having a Life Leech Aura when I'm not going to have anything that can benefit from Life Leech all that much longer. Down here, this is what really surprised me, because I thought I was definitely still in the game as long as these Sharpness horses were still around, because as long as they don't really get too much damage, they can regenerate up and keep going. But this nasty Lord on Frostfang, which is why I guess I was so nasty about him at the start, you know, just saying how dangerous they are, he did 8 damage on the charge. He has 9 attacks, right? Yeah, he has Strider, so he's not going to be affected by the train that much, but he's hitting on 3s. 9 attacks. And I talk about all the time I hit with my 7 attacks from my Manifestation of Baal and do absolutely nothing. And then this guy comes in and does absolutely nearly everything. He only fails once. I mean, truth be told, he does have the Blade of Slashing, so that definitely helps with the consistency, but jeez! I was just very surprised to have them removed like that. Not even a waiver. And so there I am. I now no longer have those. My Abyssal Fiend is just sitting here by himself. Baal's gone off on his own little adventure, and suddenly I've lost a lot of unit strength so far. And in fact, unit strength on this side of the battlefield is completely gone. So that is awful. Over here, well, speaking of unit strength, it's probably the last major bastion of it. It's my unit strength 4 is also gone, because the Snow Trolls and Lord on Frostfang really didn't have any trouble taking them out. So yeah, not looking good at all, and it's only turn 3, and I thought I was doing so well at the start. Not really. But at the time I really did feel like I was doing well. And then I've come back here to perhaps take a picture, I'm not quite sure, but it's just quite annoying because now I can't really charge off into anything, just because of the way those wonderful snow foxes are positioned. So it's my turn 4, and so that means it's time to flip over some tokens. But I didn't really take pictures of that because, yeah, it was also hectic. But we all know where my tokens are, so the 2-point token that I'm fighting for is right here. So now he knows it's there. He's like, oh, cool, I'm right on it. And that's a 1 point right there. And then there's a 1 point underneath his dwarves. So he's pretty much got the game just by holding what it was he was sitting on. So it hasn't really worked out very well for me at all. And so perhaps my tactic was not quite right in skewing my entire army to where the Fool's Gold stuff is, because then he just put his army right opposite it and didn't move it. He just said, yeah, come at me, when I probably should have been tempting him to come to me. But in any case, I do take advantage of at least the fact that Thrym is here, and I think in the previous photo I had him facing towards the Cronius, but I think he realized that that's maybe not great when you have the Tortured Souls flying in. So he's got a front from Tortured Souls and a flank from the Cronius, which will hopefully be enough to remove this bugger. Oh, and the Abyssal Warlock is just trying not to get attacked and moving out of the way. And then over here, so I've just started indicating what each of them are, so that's a 0-point token. I am attacking that Lord on Frostfang with everything I've got with the Abyssal Fiend, which is not all that much, because he's only got 7 attacks, so we'll just have to see how it goes. And then over here, the Manifestation of Baal continues to pound into these Icekin Hunters for what it's worth, but yeah, don't expect much from him. And so down here, what we're seeing, I'm not sure. Oh, wait! Where did they go? There's no more snow foxes! Huzzah! Guess what? My guy, he didn't need to really bane chain anything, just decided to do some firebolts, and firebolts was all that was required. Gone are those snow foxes, the pesky bastards. And here I managed to do 2 wounds. He already had 1 from the Abyssal Champion, so the Abyssal Fiend did an extra 2. Which is not really enough to do anything, but you know, at least we're starting the fight. But guess what? Manifestation of Baal has cleaned up over here, and now has set his sights on the 1 2-point token I might have some control over. And so guess where he's going next turn in turn 5? Yes, right there. Over here, I managed to clean up the Thrym monster, and so his corpse is lying out over there. But unfortunately, what I have to then contend with when I then reposition is the fact there's a Snow Trolls here, and there's a Snow Trolls there, and a Frostfang Lord. So somehow I need to, take it all out and get onto some things. Really what I should have been doing is positioning to take out one, but the problem is I also can't receive any flank charges. So here I am, trying not to get hit, and it's not really working all that well. So what will get hit in Dave's turn 4? Well, these Snow Trolls saw a tasty flank of my Abyssal Fiend that didn't manage to do anything and was just kind of sitting there chopping this Lord on Frostfang very ineffectively, and so he's definitely gone. 36 attacks from Snow Trolls, get out of here, even if they are hindered. And then on this side, let's take a look, we've got the other Snow Trolls just going into the front of Tortured Souls. That's much more acceptable. At least I might be able to take that. But I was wrong. I couldn't. And there's the Lord on Frostfang heading over to that 2-point token over here. I could not take that much damage, and so the Tortured Souls are gone. So now I have no unit strength in terms of unit strength. I have 3 1-unit strength models, and you can see them all right here on the screen before you for your convenience. Manifestation of Baal, Cronius, and the Abyssal Warlock. Why do my games always end up like this? Must be something else, not me. So it's time for turn 5. How can I scramble to get any objectives at all? Well, like I said, the Manifestation of Baal's gone to this one. The Cronius has gone to this one to take that 1. So I've got 1, 2, so that's 3. But unfortunately, he's got 1 Dwarf Clansman on 1, and he's got also another 2. And then I think he's now just thinking, how can I get the last one that I need? So yeah, I did no fighting in that round because I just scrambled to all the different objectives. And so he has come over here to contest this 2 with his Lord on Frostfang, and that's pretty much all he needs to do. He comes over, that 2's gone, he still firmly holds another 2 and a 1, so he has 3 victory points, I have 1 victory point, and so it's not looking good for me. What he did do over here was just bring the Trolls over to that 1 point, so summarized in this slide, you can see that 2 is contested, these guys hold 2, 1, and the Frostfang and Dwarf Clansmen hold everything else that they need. There you see. And that's unfortunately how it ends. In fact, what we did think though is actually that this was turn 6 already. You know, it's the classic, we're getting a bit tired, we haven't had our food, and we thought that this was turn 6. You know, when you're at turn 3, you're like, isn't it turn 4? And we're like, yeah, it must be. Oh, we didn't turn over the tokens. That's strange. So we turned over the tokens a bit earlier. But ultimately, the way the combats went, it didn't change anything whatsoever. Because actually, if the game continued on, chances are the Manifestation of Baal would have died, and then I would have had even less unit strength. Not that he just would have won even harder. So Dave did a really good job. Those Lords on Frostfang, very inspiring. I mean, no, they don't have very inspiring, but to me they were inspiring because I felt like from that I could learn ways to use such units, things that have that nimbleness, the ability to move around, but also pack a punch. And so, yeah, I need to identify such units in my armies. I don't really think the Forces of the Abyss have quite such a unit that's just so versatile and has an ability to get around and take a hit. But just being able to use nimble units in general, it's always very good to watch this happen. So that is it for round 5. So there's only one more game to go. And since I've lost this one, I need to win the next one. And I wonder who it will be against. I know, of course, but I wonder in your sakes. So if you didn't mind me just, again, going through the train wreck that was this game, please like this video, leave a comment saying something else I should have done, and yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do, because you'll get some more of this. There's one more game to go, and hopefully it'll be a bit better. And then after that, we actually just recently had a tournament here, another one of what we call the Mike Cons, because they're run by Michael Crossman here in Melbourne, which we have a wonderful community of a lot of players, and so I'll actually cover that again. So it's similar to the little 3-game event I covered back in December, so I'll do that again. just because it was really fun, and yeah, any source of battle reports. I do plan on doing in some time in the future some more video battle reports. I do require actually organizing them with people, because you don't want to be videoing at a tournament. That's, you know, you're going to have all kinds of audio in the background, and also it's not fair on the player you're playing against. It doesn't take all that much extra time, but it just requires a dual commitment of both players to the video process, because I do like to involve them in the discussion and the commentary, because it just makes it a little bit more fun. So yeah, there's all kinds of content, and then I'm going to do some other just discussion content, so show some painting. So I've got a lot of stuff to show, and yeah, let me know if there's anything else that you would like to see that I'm not currently doing, or I am doing and you want me to do more of. And also, just so people know, I know some people have been asking for close-up pictures, and so in my next set of battle reports from the other tournament, I took up close-up pictures of everyone's army, and it was just so happened that the 3 armies I went against were very well painted, so you're welcome. You'll get some nice stuff to look at. So otherwise, that's it for today. One more battle report to go, and I'll release it very quickly hereafter. I will not dally. See you then. Bye!